Hello, everyone. Jose and Nick here, coming back to you from Moneyline MMA. We have another week of exciting fights, the battle of the two Rafaels. For the first fight of the night, we have a lightweight bout between Michael Johnson versus Jamie Mullarkey. For the second fight of the night, we have a heavyweight bout between Jared Vanderaa versus Chase Sherman. The third fight of the night is a bantamweight bout between Douglas Silva versus Said Nurmagomedov. And for the co-main event, we have a middleweight bout between Caio Borralho versus Armen Petrosyan. And for the main event, we have the number 7th ranked RDA Rafael dos Anjos versus the number 10 ranked Rafael Fiziev. And for the first fight of the night, we have a lightweight bout between the UFC vet Michael Johnson versus Jamie Mullarkey. Right now, Michael Johnson is coming off a win against Alan Patrick, while Jamie Mullarkey is coming off a loss. Right now, this fight is nothing too big, I feel like, Nick, in terms of where these guys kind of fall within the rankings. I think it's an exciting fight. Michael Johnson, he's proven to still have a lot in the gas tank for him. He was on a 4-fight losing streak, and him being able to get that second round KO, I think truly shows that he's still in it, and he still has a place here in the UFC.
Yeah, no doubt, Jose. Jamie Mullarkey's coming in here at a minus 250 favorite, which is fascinating against Michael Johnson's being a seasoned UFC veteran at this point, sitting at a plus 190 underdog spot. That's very interesting. He's coming off a win against Alan Patrick, but a couple tough losses in 2021 and 2020 against Clay Guida and Thiago Moises, but those are some pretty good names. Granted, Thiago Moises landed one strike and then just went for the submission attempt, which is kind of funny. Which kind of leads to one of the things I think Jamie Mullarkey would attack in this case. I think if he wants to, if this is going to be a fight that goes the distance, 15 minutes, I think he's going to end up having to take Michael Johnson down and use some of his grappling advantage as well. Who knows if he'll get the submission? He doesn't have a submission in the UFC to this point, but I think he is coming off a loss against Jalen Turner, though, who we just saw recently fight, and I think he's a really good fighter too. So that's a tough opponent. Jamie Mullarkey's a young guy. I think he still has a lot to learn, and still in that case also a lot to prove in the UFC as he learns, fight by fight.
Right on, Nick. And with that learning fight by fight, I definitely think in terms of the experience, Michael Johnson has definitely gone against the more elite of the UFC. I mean, he does have wins over Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier, and he's also gone against like the best of the best, like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Justin Gaethje, and he has some wins and he has some losses. That being said, I think in this fight, he's definitely going to use his veteran experience to ride out the fight and get that decision victory. I don't know if he's at a point where he's really looking to end the fight early. Both guys do have finishing power, though. Michael Johnson himself, he currently has 9 KO/TKOs out of his 20 wins, while Jamie Mullarkey has 10 out of his 14 wins. So this fight can end at any given moment. I think Michael Johnson is definitely going to use his reach, his just overall fight IQ to help him secure the victory. And if he finds an opportunity to end it early, he will. You're right. Yeah, I think Jamie Mullarkey probably will have to utilize some wrestling and take him down and get Michael Johnson uncomfortable. Michael Johnson does have a 78% takedown defense, though, so I can see this fight riding out on the feet. But if it does go down, I don't see Michael Johnson doing very well off the ground, so it does matter whether Jamie Mullarkey can bring him down. I think that's just the biggest thing he needs to worry about is bringing him down and keeping him there. And then from there, historically, we've seen Michael Johnson does tend to struggle with top pressure. So if Jamie Mullarkey can stay heavy on top of him, I think he can himself coast to victory. But overall for this fight, I will go with Michael Johnson, just given that he does have overall more UFC experience against better fighters. And I don't know if Jamie Mullarkey really offers anything too different or challenging for him to not get this victory.
Yeah, that's totally fair, Jose. I like your point about the experience Michael Johnson's seen in the ring. I mean, he even took Khabib to the third round. I understand he lost that via submission, but Khabib was on his back for 6 minutes in the first 2 rounds of that fight and wasn't able to end it there. So Michael Johnson may not have the advantage on the ground, but he does clearly show ability to at least actively avoid being submitted and trying to actively get back up to his feet and keep the fight going. So, excuse me, if Michael Johnson is able to show his strikes, output advantage and show that he can output more damage onto Jamie Mullarkey standing, that'll be his route to winning this fight. But in any case, Michael Johnson's been submitted 9 times in his UFC career. I think he might hit the double digits with this one. I'm gonna take Jamie Mullarkey by submission.
Yeah, I like that pick, Nick. That's a very fair pick. I like that assessment, and I think, yeah, I'm gonna have to side with the underdog on this. You're right. He does fall under pressure when it comes to the, susceptible to those submissions. And you're right. Yeah, Jamie Larkey, he's gonna have to he's gonna have to find the opportunity to lock that in. I personally am gonna go with the UFC vet here, and I'm hoping that he does keep this on the feet. He's had enough UFC fights where that 78% takedown defense looks pretty impressive. And that's also like he did get taken down so many times, but could be alone. So that being said, yeah, I'm gonna go with the underdog, Michael Johnson, for this. And you guys heard that there. I Jose for the underdog, Michael Johnson, and Nick for the favorite, Jamie Mullarkey.
And for the next fight coming up on this UFC Fight Night card here in July, we've got a heavyweight bout between Jared Vanderaa and Chase Sherman. We've got the favorite, Jared Vanderaa, sitting at minus 192 against the underdog, Chase Sherman, plus 148. Jose, this is going to be interesting, mainly in the sense because I think whoever wins this fight has their chance at another UFC fight, and the loser gets their contract terminated. These guys are both coming off some tough losses lately against some, whether it be older veterans or younger guys that are coming up, and they just haven't been able to find success. So we'll see what happens here, Jose. But in my opinion, they're fighting for their UFC careers.
Yeah, Nick, I agree. Both are on the wrong end of terrible losing streaks. Right now, Chase Sherman's actually riding just one more loss over Jared Vanderaa. Right now, Chase Sherman has 4 losses, while Jared Vanderaa is riding off 3 losses right now. But similar names, like for example, both fighters, both Jared Vanderaa and Chase Sherman, have both lost to Alexander Romanov and Andrei Arlovsky. I will give some credit to Jared Vanderaa because even though he only has 3 losses in the course of 5 fights, he has 4 losses. He's 1-4 out of his last 5 fights, and the other loss is to Sergey Spivak that came back in February 2021, Blades versus Lewis. Yeah, I agree with you. This is definitely them just trying to stay in. I do think his win over Justin Tafa, unanimous decision win, I do think that is a little impressive. And he's gone against Alexei Olenek, UFC vet, and Andrei Arlovsky. Tough losses, split decision loss to Andrei Arlovsky. And even though Andre is the former heavyweight champ, it's not the same guy. Unfortunately, Andrei Arlovsky himself, he's beating the people he's supposed to beat today, and he's losing to who he's supposed to lose to. He is kind of a gatekeeper, and uh, I will give some credit to Jared Vanderaa for facing them and losing to them. I don't think is as bad as losing to, for example, Jake Collier like Jared Vanderaa has, or Parker Porter. That's just my personal opinion. So yeah, they need to get a win because I definitely do do see them, whoever loses this fight, being released by the UFC. Neither guy really is a huge threat or a big name or just presence overall in the UFC heavyweight division, and I hate to say it, but the UFC roster in general. So they're just someone to fill up some roster space right now, and I hate to say it that way, Nick.
Yeah, it is unfortunate to have to look at it like that, but stylistically, it seems like both of these guys are ready to duke it out on their feet. I don't think either of them are going to be shooting for takedowns. Jared Vanderaa has 1 takedown attempt and 1 landed on his UFC career in his opener against Harry Hunsucker back in 2020. So I just don't think either of these guys are taking it to the ground. It's going to be a matter of boxing, who can either outbox who for 3 rounds or get the knockout. And statistically, it's fascinating because Chase Sherman does boast, statistically at least, more output and a little bit better of ability to defend strikes, at least specifically significant strikes. So it's fascinating to look at it in that sense, but I just haven't, you mentioned the competition that these guys have faced. I think Vanderaa has seen a little bit tougher competition in the couple losses that he has. Looking at it from Chase Sherman's perspective, though, his last two losses were submission losses. So, if we're talking about guys who aren't going to get any submission chance, then Chase Sherman would theoretically actually have a really good chance of winning this fight. But in any case, I'm going to lean towards the favorite. I'm going to go with Jared Vanderaa here. I think he's had less experience in the UFC, but I think he's going to be able to take his reach advantage. It's only 2 inches, but he's going to at least utilize that and stay is enough away from Chase Sherman to avoid the big knockout punch and just win by decision. So if I had to pick, I'll say Jared Vanderaa by decision.
Yeah, Nick, that's a great pick. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right here too. Shane, surprisingly, so yeah, Shane Sherman being the underdog at plus 148. It's crazy because he does have a 94% finish rate and 14. Yeah, that's right. 14 out of his 15 wins come via KO/TKO. So for me, like I do put some value behind that, but also when I look at it, all those finishes did pretty much come outside the UFC. So when it does come to UFC competition, he's not finishing them, and he's not really getting the job done as he should. And that being said, yeah, this is one of those fights where you're gonna have to take whatever you can get, whatever these guys are giving you, and this is not the most fun fight, which is unfortunate because it is heavyweight. But yeah, I'm gonna take whatever I can get, and yeah, that reach advantage and just overall experience, even for how short period of a time it was in the UFC. Because Chase Sherman does actually have 2 stints in the UFC. He did fight Walt Harris, for example, in his first stint in the UFC, lost to that as well. So Chase Sherman hasn't really showed us enough to be like, okay, this guy can beat a certain level of guys, and then there's certain guys he's definitely going to lose to. And looking at Jared Vanderaa, I don't think this is a guy he's really supposed to lose to. I do think he has the potential to beat Jared Vanderaa, but I am going to go with the favorite like yourself for this one and Jared Vanderaa because again the 2 inch reach advantage for me is saying a lot, and not only that yeah, just pretty much being the younger fighter. I'm just taking like those small things with me, and I'm gonna go with the favorite for this one, like yourself, Nick. All right, and for our third fight of the night, we have a bantamweight bout between Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Said Nurmagomedov. Right now, Said Nurmagomedov he's riding off a 2-fight win streak right now in the UFC. He's done pretty well. He's 4-1 right now in the UFC, while Douglas Silva de Andrade is also himself right now. He's got some more wins and losses throughout the UFC. Right now, the odds are Said Nurmagomedov is the betting favorite at minus 280, while Douglas Silva de Andrade is the betting underdog at plus 210. I think this one's gonna be a fun one. Said Nurmagomedov doesn't fight like a lot of the other fighters from the Dagestan region. He's actually a very smart striker, and he has phenomenal takedown defense. So I actually don't know if this fight will be on the ground much, Nick. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I'm sure most people's thoughts are like, oh, here we go, another Nurmagomedov brother or sibling or person in the whole family tree that they have over there in Russia. And you would expect them to immediately be one of the best grapplers around, this and that. And while that is true for most of those cases, I think Saeed was able to, experience the best grapplers in the world and practice against them, and dang near use that to hone in his craft. And that's part of the reason why he has such a great takedown defense. And he still, I mean, we saw him take almost a year and a half break or so from his October 2020 fight, and then taking a little bit of a layoff to January 2022. And he absolutely destroyed Cody Stamann with a quick guillotine choke in the first round. Just showing that even a little time off, whether it was for injury or whatever else, he continues to get better. He's a young guy, barely just scraping the edge of his prime at this point. So it's no surprise to me why in the end he is the favorite for this fight. And like you said, outside of the takedown defense and the grappling from Dagestan and all that, it is fascinating just how high tier of a striker Saeed is. And he's been able to kind of dismantle almost all of the opponents he's seen to this point in the UFC by getting the advantage in striking and either using that to get a KO or getting the guillotine choke really quickly on. So I'm just not sure Douglas Andrade has exactly what it'll take to defend against the onslaught. He's gotten some submission wins and KO wins to his own. So it'll be fascinating to see two guys come in the ring that have really, sharpened skills, both striking and grappling.
Yeah, Nick. And quick off to your point, I'm pretty sure this Nurmagomedov Saeed is not actually related to Omar Nurmagomedov and Khabib Nurmagomedov. I just think they have the same last name. But that being said, you're right. His grappling is still up there. Even he has phenomenal striking, but his grappling overall itself still stands. I mean, he's proved, like you said, that first round submission choke against Cody Stamann came in the first round pretty quick. And before that, he also showed like how versatile he is with his first round KO over Mark Striegel. Mark Striegel went for a single leg takedown and couldn't bring him down. And Nurmagomedov just started throwing haymakers at him and put him out right there within the first round. And it was great to see. And he himself has 4 KOs and 4 submissions on his record. But I'm looking at Douglas Silva's record, man. Here's the one thing that stands out to me. 28 wins, 28 wins, and 20 of those wins are via KO/TKO, and he only has 2 submissions. So, yeah, I think this fight overall is going to stay on the feet for the most part, and both are not far off when it comes to significant strikes landed per minute. Nurmagomedov does land 4.75 strikes per minute, while Silva lands 3.83. I think overall this fight is going to stay on the feet. I mean, both Silva and Nurmagomedov have Silva having a 68% takedown defense, while Nurmagomedov having the 77% takedown defense. Overall, it's going to be a striking match. I see it being a striking match, and granted that Saeed Nurmagomedov is the taller man, being 5'8", compared to Douglas Silva being 5'6". Nurmagomedov also has a 2-inch reach advantage. I think overall his striking, and he has power for how small these guys are. Nurmagomedov does have power, but overall his striking for how lengthy he is pretty impressive. And that being said, it does Silva's experience overall, even if it's not as much in the UFC, it does stand out to me. But Saeed Nurmagomedov, I can't, we can't deny these guys over there from Dagestan. I think it's almost like it's really hard to bet against them, no matter what they're going to bring to the table. In my opinion, you just don't know what they're going to bring. Like he could come out in this fight and just completely out grapple Silva. But again, I think this is going to be a pure striking match, and I don't think this fight will last all 3 rounds. I definitely see Saeed Nurmagomedov ending it within the 2.5 rounds.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jose. I think maybe, in between some exchanges, maybe between a knockdown or two, someone does get to the ground. I'm not necessarily sure it'll just be an entire fight on the ground, though. I think most of the time will be spent striking on the feet. And I do still think, like we've explained, that Saeed has that advantage. So I'm going to agree with you, Saeed. I don't know if I'm quite as willing to go within the distance, because I do think Douglas is a really good fighter, but I'll still pick Saeed for sure.
So there you guys have it, both Nick and I, for the betting favorite, Saeed Nurmagomedov.
And now, Jose, we got the co-main event coming in, an exciting middleweight bout between Caio Borralho and Armen Petrosyan. Borralho coming in at the minus 192 favorite, Petrosyan plus 148 underdog. Jose, any of our original listeners are going to remember back a couple of months ago, really only 3 months ago, not even to this point, when Caio came in against Gadzhi as the underdog. Gadzhi had come off of his Contender Series win, and everybody thought he was going to get a big knockout. And Borralho ended up stuffing him completely. The fight had to be called off early, and he got the unanimous decision win. I think Borralho is a guy to be feared. There's a real reason why he's a favorite against someone as talented as Petrosyan, because we're talking about a guy who's 2-0 in the UFC and who also fought earlier this year against Gregory Rodriguez. RoboCop, who we watched destroy Julian Marquez last month. So there's a lot of fights going back and forth between a lot of these middleweight fighters. But that being said, that's pretty impressive to beat RoboCop by split decision earlier this year and then accept a fight about 5 months later against a guy as talented as Borralho Jose. I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, Nick, me too. I'm actually was pretty surprised that the betting odds weren't closer for this match. But that being said, this is gonna be a banger of a fight. I don't think this fight will actually go all 3 rounds. If it does, I think it would probably be a pretty boring fight then, because that's how most of these fights go. When you have people who can edit out any moment and high level striking. I think everyone wants to see these fireworks. So if this ends up going all 3 rounds, I'll be pretty disappointed because I myself, you know, Barajo, yeah, this guy, he is tough deal. Only having one loss, but also Armen having one loss as well. And man, the biggest thing that sticks out to me is Armen Petrosyan's significant strikes landed per minute. For how long he's already been in the UFC, he has 7.56 significant strikes landed per minute, while Barajo has 3.66. That's why I think this is going to be a pure high pace striking match. And it can be given out like lights out any given second. And that being said, like Metro Armen Petrosyan, 6 out of his 7 wins are KO TKO. I find a lot of value behind that. Brajo, yeah, out of his 11 wins, he's pretty diverse though. 4 KOs and 3 submissions. It's gonna be a fun one. Both are big guys. Both Armen being the taller guy, actually 6'3". For this one, I personally I would have to go with the betting underdog. Last time I was for Brahal was with you. It was amazing to see what he did. But Armen Petrosyan, like you said himself, he just fought. He beat Gregory Rodriguez, and you know how, like you said, we both were looking really high on Gregory Rodriguez. Well, I was looking really high on Gregory Rodriguez from what he did to Julian Marquez, and that was phenomenal to see. So, in the fact that Armen was able to beat him via split decision shows that, yeah, this guy has the heart to go all 3 rounds, and he can do enough to get that slight edge. And him being the bigger guy, I personally would have to side with the underdog Armen on this one, Nick.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. I've been finding it, as these weeks have gone by, I've been finding it interesting that a lot of these fighters that have a couple inches height advantage almost never seem to have a reach advantage, or if anything, it's really even. In which, in this case, it looks like Borralho is about 4 to 5 inches shorter than Petrosyan, and Borralho is listed to have a 4 inch reach advantage, which is really interesting. And we saw it last week with Holloway and Volkanovski. I mean, Volkanovski is quite average at tallest guy, but the reach advantage there is not significant whatsoever. Max Holloway's arms are, if anything, shorter than Volkanovski. So very fascinating to see how that also kind of plays out in the ring and how big of an advantage that gives Volkanovski on the standing ground and why he was able to defend his belt. But that's time in fights that have already happened. I see where you're coming from with Petrosyan. He's shown grit and toughness and the ability to go 15 minutes with some of the toughest guys in the UFC, like RoboCop. But I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to ride with Borralho here. I think he's a dog. He's got nothing but striking ability, grappling ability, which is something Petrosyan hasn't shown the ability to stop at this point. Granted, he hasn't lost in the UFC. He hasn't fought a guy who is just a ruthless grappler that will go for all the takedowns that are available. And with a 37% takedown defense, if Berichin or if Barajo really wants to come in here and feel like he doesn't have a striking advantage, boom, takedowns are going to happen and he can just hold him to the ground. So we'll see. I'm going to take Borralho. I think I kind of agree though that it won't be going the distance. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick, Nick. I mean, it is hard to argue. I mean, Brajo does have great takedown defense at 75%, and like you mentioned, that reach advantage for even being the shorter guy. Yeah, it's going to be a close one. I almost don't want to bet on this one, and just because a lot of people like personally, again, like the betting favorite Barajo, yeah, he probably should be the betting favorite. I do like what he's seen as well. Both are talented fighters, but I do like going for those underdogs every once in a while when I feel strong enough about them. And this one, I feel strong enough to side with the underdog, Armen Petrosyan, on this. So yeah, I will we'll differ here, Nick. I'm going to be going for the underdog on this one. And for our main event, we have the number 7th ranked lightweight fighter Rafael dos Anjos versus the number 10th ranked fighter Rafael Fiziev. Right now, Rafael dos Anjos is the betting underdog at plus 164, while Rafael Fiziev is the betting favorite at minus 215. Rafael dos Anjos, I've had the pleasure of watching him win the lightweight strap back in the day and then go up to welterweight, look pretty impressive there, and then come back down to lightweight. And it's been pretty great to see him on his journey throughout his UFC career. I mean, the dude's been impressive. He's gone against the who's who of the UFC, from Paul Felder to Kamaru Usman, Kobe Covington, Robbie Lawler, Neil Magny, Tony Ferguson, Eddie Alvarez, Cowboy, Anthony Pettis, Nate Diaz. I can go on all day. This guy has fought everyone. He's been with the best, and he's still going at 37 years of age, which is impressive. But with that being said, of course, new names will come up through the ranks of the division, and we have an uprising in Rafael Adaman Fiziev, and he's been looking pretty impressive himself. He had an amazing spinning KO win that he just came off of against Brad Riddell this past December, Nick. I'm extremely excited for this lightweight match.
Me too, Jose. We got Fiziev coming in at a minus 215 favorite. I think that's really crazy with a guy as good as Dos Anjos, and I get that he's not necessarily a spring chicken in terms of age goes anymore, but he's coming off a couple really good wins, more specifically the Renato Moicano win earlier this year, because obviously he had taken almost a 2-year layoff. It was about a year and a half since he beat by split decision Paul Felder. So RDA had shown that even though he took over a year off, he was able to come back in plenty good shape, have a 25-minute fight against Renato and win unanimously. So that was really impressive to me, and I thought that this would be a little closer when the odds came out, but I guess the betting public is really leaning towards Fiziev. So I do see some value in the plus 164 for Dos Anjos in the underdog. But just in terms of picking the fight here, Jose, I just think Fiziev is in a better spot right now. I mean, Fiziev has already also beaten Renato Moicano in his career, but instead of doing it in 25 minutes unanimously, he did it in the first round with a KO knockout. I just think Fiziev at this point is a little younger and a little quicker, a little snappier, and I think he's going to be able to outstrike RDA. And if it really comes down to it, he has a 95% takedown defense, and RDA isn't just going to be able to freely bring him to the ground and try grappling as he pleases either, which he did 5 times against Renato Moicano on 15 attempts. I just don't think it's going to fly as well on Fiziev, who will get the quick strikes in the clinch that RDA are going to want to avoid, in my opinion. So I don't know, Jose. This was a tough one. I see value for the underdog betting wise, but I don't know, pick wise, I really think Fiziev has the advantage here.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Nick. Rafael dos Anjos historically does seem to struggle against guys that are slightly bigger than him. Right now, in this case, both are 5'8". Fiziev does have that 1-inch reach advantage, and he also has a 2-inch leg reach advantage. So I just wonder how that's going to play a part. Rafael dos Anjos is not much of a finisher in today's light. Just I think that him being the older fighter and just being more wise in how he tries to win his fights, and he pretty much is a decision king now. And that being said, he's had a lot more 5-round fights than Rafael Fiziev has. He's Rafael Fiziev has gone 3 rounds, but not 5, and he has gone and won unanimous decision. So I can see this fight going all 5 rounds, and I can even see Rafael dos Anjos winning split decision. That's because again, Fiziev he does have, he can be a finisher. I mean, 7 out of his 11 wins come via KO and TKO, and again, his strong takedown defense. I think this fight's going to mostly be on the feet. Rafael dos Anjos is actually a very well-rounded fighter, though, too. So I don't think he's going to try to force and take Rafael Fiziev down. And if he does, I think he's going to quickly back away from that. And I can see Fiziev trying to take Rafael down. Rafael is just going to lay on his back and just try to look for the submission attempts when they're there. He's the guy that can take a beating. You just sometimes don't know who you're going to get. Rafael dos Anjos can come in and he can look like Tyron Woodley or Robbie Lawler on a bad day where their output isn't there. They're just getting hit nonstop, and it's just like wake up, wake up. Now's your time. Go now. It's now or never. And then that's the only thing I worry about Rafael dos Anjos. How he's going to show up, and then sometimes he shows up looking like Colby Covington, high volume punches. And that's the Rafael dos Anjos we need to see. I think I want to know how this weight cut is going to look for him. He has come back down to lightweight, and I think his last fight was actually a catchweight fight at 160. So I really want to see him fighting back at 155. As the fighters get older, does get harder for them to cut weight. So this is definitely not the same Rafael dos Anjos that was the lightweight champion, but this is definitely an well-experienced, well-rounded UFC vet that I think is a great challenge for Rafael Fiziev. This is definitely going to be Rafael Fiziev. If he gets this victory, it's going to be his gate into the next level of competition when in the lightweight division. And I think it just shakes up the division that much more and makes it that much more exciting. For this one, I am going to go behind the underdog, though. I do think Rafael Fiziev, he can beat Rafael on any given night, but I just think on this given night, I'm going to lean with the UFC vet. Nothing really special or spectacular, to be honest. I can see the UFC vet winning by decision and even a split decision, because I do believe Rafael Fiziev is going to try to go out there and make it lights out for Rafael dos Anjos. But again, Rafael dos Anjos can take a brutal beating, so I think he'll do enough. He will get hit, and it's going to be ugly, but I think he can do enough to get the victory come Saturday night.
All right, so in the main event, then I'm going to take the favorite Fiziev, and Jose will take the underdog RDA. Welcome to the betting portion of UFC Fight Night, RDA versus Fiziev. Jose and I had a couple disagreements on this card, and ultimately I ended up taking all the favorites on this card. So this will be one of the more brief betting sections, and you money line MMA in the past. But that being said, we still got some heaters coming your way. Before we get into it, please follow us on Twitter at Moneyline MMA and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. We'll continue to release weekly videos and picks and all of that for each UFC event that comes out. That being said, getting into it, Jose and I have differing locks on the week, given that my lock is Borralho. I'm going to keep riding his wave, and since Jose went with Petrosyan, his lock is obviously not going to be Borralho. He's going to go with Saeed on his lock, which is understandable. I think that's another fight that we both kind of agreed he should win. And obviously he will also pop up in the parlay. So Saeed is also a good bet there for sure. And if anything, if you want to make a 2-leg parlay, you can. But those are our 2 locks of the week. The underdog for Moneyline MMA this week is going to be Michael Johnson. I know we both kind of agreed that Mullarkey should win this fight. It's one of those situations where we both agree that I think Michael Johnson has the best chance of winning his fight as the underdog, and that's kind of what we're looking for when we do our weekly underdog. So Michael Johnson will be this week's underdog. And that being said, let's get into the parlay here. We're going to give 2 parlays just because in all reality, it's almost impossible to make a parlay in which both Jose and I agree on all said picks in that parlay. So you guys can feel free to kind of mix and match between what picks of Jose and I's you agree and disagree with, and just add in the ones that you agree with. But what I can say is I'll give you guys the parlays that I'm going to be looking at doing, and we'll go from there. Obviously, you can check out our Twitter. We do weekly tweets as well before the card begins, just to reiterate the lock, underdog, and top parlay. So feel free to give us a follow there and just keep an eye on that and see what we're betting on come Saturday. That being said, the first parlay I'll give here is Borralho plus Fiziev plus Nurmagomedov. Those are 3 favorites, and Jose and I can pretty much agree on those 3. And that's for plus 175 over at FanDuel. So I think that's a great little 3-leg parlay to make. Put 10, $20 down and make yourself some money back there. Maybe even more if you're feeling a little more risky. And the other parlay I'm looking at is adding in our underdog of the week. This isn't a parlay I'm going to put that much on by any means, but just for the big hit factor, since Michael Johnson's obviously the underdog, that bounces it up to plus 727 on the 4-leg parlay there. I think that's some great value. All we need is one underdog to hit, and we're getting a lot of returns. So that's something to keep on your radar, guys. And that will also end this week's episode of Moneyline MMA UFC Fight Night RDA versus Fiziev. Have a great week, guys, and we will be back again next week.